Good Friday afternoon to you, good listener. Hope you're having a nice start to your long weekend here. Matt Robinson with you as always, with just a couple of things I thought we should probably cover here a little bit. We did manage to get 3 episodes out this week, but it kind of dried up there towards the end, certainly. So thought I would check in just because it's been kind of a newsy week for the Ottawa Senators, and we haven't really touched on it a whole lot since Steve Lloyd was on the show on Tuesday. And some of the news hadn't yet been made. Frankly, quite most of it hadn't been made yet. So I thought we would dive into that. Of course, the Sens do get a big win on Thursday night against the tied for first place anyway, Buffalo Sabres, which put some energy back into the fan base, into the playoff chase. Look, I get why people were feeling a little negative. The stats I saw on Thursday morning still said that the Sens had a 52% chance of making the playoffs. Like I said, that was before the win. But the vibes felt worse than that. And I guess that'll happen, right? With some of the things that had been floating around, plus 2 straight losses, one of them in fairly demoralizing fashion to the Florida Panthers. Things seem a little bit better now for a few different reasons. Let's start here. Just briefly, we get an announcement on Thursday evening that Bell Media has renewed their broadcast rights to the Ottawa Senators for 12 more years, and which means the games will stay on TSN and RDS on television, like I said, for 12 more years. It's good news. And look, that deal is up at the end of this season, or the original deal was going to be up at the end of this season. And so the fact that we hadn't heard anything yet was starting to... Well, the silence was getting pretty loud, to be honest with you. Normally, you don't let these things run down quite this far, but certainly they still would have had the summer to work it out, but better that they didn't have to go that far. Sens fans will feel a little bit, and I think this was the outcome most people wanted. I don't know what Sportsnet's interest would have been. I'm sure they would have had some. But I see an awful lot of complaints about the Rogers broadcast. Well, I see it nationwide, but certainly here in the nation's capital. I wonder if that would have changed had Sportsnet got involved, had Sportsnet become the rights holder in Ottawa. Maybe they would treat the Senators a little bit better on Saturdays. Maybe they would give them a little bit more attention throughout the week. Hard to say, and we'll never know now. But most Sens fans seem pretty happy that this will be staying on TSN. The region remains the same. There had been some question about whether that could be tweaked. I guess that really belongs more to the league than it does to the broadcaster. But obviously Eastern Ontario, some parts of Quebec, and obviously the Maritimes. Look, it's a good deal. TSN does a quality broadcast. 9 out of 10 games shown in Ottawa are done well, and so what are you going to do? There's no exact number. This probably will change a little bit year over year. Most years, it's somewhere around 50 to 52 games that the Sens have that appear on TSN. Keep in mind, next year we're switching to an 84-game season, so that'll change things a little bit. How many games end up on Hockey Night in Canada? How many games end up on Monday nights on Amazon Prime? How many games end up on a Wednesday night national game? So you don't know exactly how many games that the Sens are going to have on TSN, but it will be the majority of their games, like it's been for the last, quite some time. Like I said, that's 12 years. The interesting part of this is the radio side, which has been a bit of an adventure here lately. Fans have known this was a thing. Fans have been worried about this thing because had Bell Media lost or chosen, didn't have to be a bidding war. They could have chosen to walk away. Had they not re-upped with the Senators, there was a lot of people in the radio industry and frankly in the fan base that were pretty sure, and maybe it wouldn't have been right away, but that would have been the death blow for TSN 1200. We have seen what Bell Media has done to TSN radio across the country. They have closed up shop in 3 or 4 of them now here over the last several years. Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal are the only ones left standing. I don't think I'm speaking out of school to say that one of those things is not like the other in terms of market size, in terms of franchise, prestige, all these sorts of things. I know that sucks to hear, but that's the world we live in. If the Senators are not going to appear on TSN 1200, TSN 1200 has a very difficult time supporting itself and having enough content and all these sorts of things. It wouldn't have been good news. Now, fortunately, for the foreseeable future, for the immediate future, that's not a problem. But in doing a little bit of digging around, I can't find anyone who believes that the radio deal is as long as the TV deal. Now, no one seems to have an exact number on 3 years, 5 years, 1 year. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I've had a couple people say to me it's not for the full 12 years, but they don't know either, or at least they're not telling me how many years it is. So I can't imagine that they tie TSN 1200 into the announcement, make them a part of it, only for this to have been re-upped for only 1 year or something like that. This is going to last for a reasonable amount of time. But just for interest's sake, just for your information, for whatever it's worth, it is not the full 12 years like the TV deal is. So that's interesting. You guys know, obviously, what kind of job they do down there. It's a bit much for me sometimes as a non-Sens fan. You know, I do like the people running the station. We've had most of them on the show. Isn't that? But I don't need quite as much Sens talk as the average Sens fan does. And look, they do it well. Come at it from different angles, lots of guests, lots of analysts, lots of players, lots of tie-ins to the organization, broadcasting from the rink, these sorts of things. They do it well. And look, I've talked to enough of the guys who's like, I've sort of said, like, it's a lot of Sens talk, right? It's a lot of Sens talk. And we hear about it when there's any less. So obviously that's what the market wants. And had TSN 1200 shuttered and these games get moved to 580 CFRA or wherever they might have ended up in town, those platforms can't give the Ottawa Senators the amount of free publicity, free promotion throughout the day that TSN 1200 does. People in town want to hear about the Ottawa Senators all day. TSN 1200 does it, it works for them, and it's good for the team. Because like I said, CFRA, they probably at some point have to talk about the news. They probably have to talk about city politics. They probably have to get to other things other than how many defensemen, and there's another one on the list, currently injured for the Ottawa Senators. So this is a good deal for the entire market. Happy for our friends down at TSN 1200 that, things are now stable and steady for them. I can't imagine how uncomfortable it would have been for them having it come down this close to the wire and not knowing exactly what was going on. I did get one note. We do talk a lot about the media side of things on here, and it's really just because it's of interest to me. I understand that it isn't for everybody, but it's my show, and you don't have to be here. So, look, to my knowledge, and we don't do this kind of thing very often, because quite frankly, we're not that connected. But to my knowledge, we were the first outlet in the nation's capital to mention on the show that Dean and Gord would not be traveling with the team this year. There's been one or two other little things over the years that we've gotten wind of and been able to, report. Sounds a little over the top, sounds a little douchey, but that we've been able to talk about on this show before other people had it. And at the end of last summer, I had a couple different people kind of come to me and talk about the idea that Dean and Gord might not be going on the road. And, we did a show on it, and it dropped a couple days later and broke containment in other news outlets, and that's fine. But it seems to have built a bit of an expectation that perhaps we're a little bit more plugged in than we actually are. Look, I know a lot of the people who work for Bell Media around town, but these are jobs. Like, this was not a change in the broadcast like Dean and Gord not traveling would be. And it was an important change, but it was just a change. This was, this time, a loss of a station, a loss of professions, a loss of jobs on the line. I promise you, no one was telling Stupid Matt and his beer podcast what was going on and risking anything getting thrown into the mix that didn't need to be. Me coming on here and saying something that didn't need to be out there that I didn't need to know about, right? So, no. To the one or two people who have asked if I knew this was coming, I heard 2 or 3 days ago it was nearing completion and it was trending in the right direction, but that nothing was done. Obviously, there are people out there who've known longer than that and have closer ties to it. But like I said, knowing that this was one of those things where if it gets fucked up in any way, there are a whole lot of good people down there that are about to lose their jobs. I didn't, A, have enough to come on here and say anything, and B, wouldn't have anyway. It's just not one of those things that's worth anything, right? Like, we don't pride ourselves as breaking news. We're not that kind of podcast. We're not insiders. We're not reporters. We're not whatever. So when we have something, it's kind of fun to be the first one out with it. But in this case, I didn't really have it. And even if I did, you know, you're not going to put your friends and these people that you genuinely like in a bad spot by going on your stupid podcast and talking about it. So, like I said, I had heard some rumblings, not to a place where I was comfortable talking about it. Like last summer, and I went to broadcast school. I did not go to journalism school when I was in college. But my basic understanding of it, and from talking to enough real journalists and just being a nerd for this kind of stuff, is you better have 2 solid sources both telling you 100% this is accurate. And what I had last summer was 3 people who I trusted telling me 100% that it looks like they won't travel. So I had people I trusted all saying the exact same thing, that this is what's out there, but it's not done. And so I felt comfortable talking about that. It's not like Dean and Gord were going to lose their jobs. It's not like Dean and Gord were going to be fired. They were going to do games from the studio. This was different. It was less concrete what I had. It was from fewer sources. They weren't telling me exactly the same thing. Sources even sound so douchey, right? Like, I had a couple different people giving me their version of it. There was minor differences in it. All it was that everyone said this is trending in a positive direction. There's no reason for me to jump out at that point and throw my name on something, get it out into the public, and risk messing something up. So would it have messed anything up? I have no idea, but wasn't a risk worth taking. So good news there. It's disappointing that it wasn't the full 12 years, but honestly, who knows where the radio industry is going to be in 12 years. I can tell you 12 years ago to now, the radio business sure looks a whole lot different. So who knows? I can see why maybe it wasn't as different, but for now, happy for the people down at TSN 1200. Frankly, happy for the market. And honestly, it's good for the Sens. It's what's best for the Ottawa Senators, that they have this platform that is covering them all throughout the summer. You flip on the radio on July 24th, and people still want to talk about, I don't know, the 5th defenseman who's still floating around on the market and whether he might be a good fit for the Ottawa Senators or whatever. It's a passionate fan base. The Senators are the biggest thing in town. You know, the Red Blacks are here. The 67s are here. There's other stuff going on in the summer. But the Sens are still the big dog in this market, and it's good for them to have an outlet. Like, this was just too much of a slam dunk to not get it done. So congratulations to everybody, because, like I said, it's good news. Slightly less good news around the vibes of the team on the last couple of days. Like I said, certainly better after a win on Thursday night, but it was even still kind of a negative tinge after the post-game pressers. We'll get to that in a second. But I thought before the game, Travis Green's media availability was interesting. He's swearing at the media, and not in a over-the-top critical way or whatever. He said, I can't even remember what it was now, that something was shitty or we played shitty or something like that, which he doesn't normally do. He was a little more gregarious or outgoing than he is. Like, honestly, sometimes I find listening to his media availability to be pretty dull, and it's not necessarily because of what he's saying. Honestly, I just find sometimes he comes off a little mopey or something. That was not the case on Thursday. You could tell he was trying to portray some calm and some confidence, perhaps even make himself the story. And again, not in an over-the-top crazy way, but, Jesus Christ, Travis Green's throwing down swear words in his press availabilities, just to kind of get the attention, maybe. But if nothing else, portray confidence. I think it was Julian McKenzie who asked him before the game, who's starting in goal today. And the tone of his answer, and he's like, I can't even remember. Did he say Linus Ullmark or Ollie or whatever? But it was in that very Ollie, obviously. Like it was a stupid question. And it very much was not a stupid question. After what happened with Tampa last Saturday and Ullmark saying he wasn't good to go and needed the rest, starting on Tuesday, giving up a goal 8 seconds into the game, getting lifted at 5-0. I know that wasn't entirely on him. There was reasonable conversation over the next couple of days that maybe it's time to go back to James Reimer. Who knows what's going on with Ullmark? Can he be trusted right now while the Senators are life and death to make the playoffs? I kind of like, and we like Julian around here, but I kind of like the vibe Travis Green gave to that question. Now, you and I know they would have had a very real conversation about whether to start him on Thursday. And it would have been a totally reasonable one. But for him to come out publicly and go, what are you talking about? Of course it's going to be Ullmark. He's our guy. He's our number one. Like, that's what he's trying to portray in that moment. He's our number one guy. Of course he's starting. Get that confidence out into the market, into the fan base. Perhaps get that confidence into his locker room. Show Ullmark, I got your back, man. Like, you're fine here. You're our guy still. And I don't hate the decision to start him. I said to a couple of people there in a couple of texts on Thursday that I would have started Ullmark as well. Show him, again, just like you did to the media, you're our guy. You're our number one man. The organization is behind you. The organization is invested in you. We trust you with this game that we badly need to have. And if he wins it, great. We're back on track. And if he loses it, if he loses it looking poorly, now it is rhyme time all the time. Now he goes out, he plays well, gets the win. No problem. Everything's back on track. I don't blame Travis Green for going back to Ullmark in that moment, but it would have been the last time for me if it had gone poorly. Now, it didn't, so we don't have to go down that road. The podcast thing. And I get that people are tired of talking about it. And I kind of am too, a little bit, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because it's not the podcast itself anymore for me. I kind of hated Brady's media availability after the game, where I found he came off kind of shitty in a situation that you created for yourself. So we'll get to that in a second. There are 3 different clips or quotes kind of making their way around from the podcast, and one that I'm surprised isn't more making waves. The first one, which I will play right now.
Yes, that's what happens. You play through injuries, guys. Holy Christ, this whole team. My pinky hurts. I'm out for 6 days.
I knew that was coming. I knew right when he said that, I'm like, don't say it. I'm like, don't you say it.
I just had a bad sleep, so I can't play today. Oh, my God. Disgusting.
All right, well, we're going to move on here.
Can't play back-to-back.
So
Rest management.
That is crazy. I mean, back-to-back, that used to not be whatever. But
Grant Fuhrer played 70 games in 1 year.
I think 76. Yeah,
76.
76.
Haven't shot a 76 in a long time.
Is clearly about the Florida Panthers. Now, there are a couple of people online who cut that in a very shitty way to make it seem like it very much could have been about the Sens and Allmark and guys not playing hard, guys not playing back-to-back, guys not resting. In the context of the wider conversation and hearing Matthew Tkachuk's reaction, he quite clearly was talking about the Florida Panthers, who have shut it down. I saw a list before the Tuesday game or the Thursday game of theirs, I can't remember, of the number of guys that are just done and the team's already announced aren't coming back. That's how you do a tank, Toronto. That's how you do that. And so that's clearly what he's talking about. Now, a lot of fans get twisted up because, much like myself, and I had to change my policy for this, I don't want to listen to this podcast. I listened to the first one, all of it. I listened to the second one, about half of it, and I really haven't been back since, unless there was something somebody alerted me to that I thought I needed to go and check on. But it's not for me. It's hockey bros and all that kind of, the language they use. Not that it's offensive language, but it's that hockey bro talk that I just don't have much time for. Plus, it's the, two premier stars of two franchises I don't like, who are Team USA through and through, who I don't like, who are supporting politicians I don't like. Like, there's very little reason for me to want to go and listen to this podcast. But when this one made news, I went and I listened to the whole goddamn thing. And a lot of it sucks. Some of the Keith Tkachuk stuff is fun because I'm old. Not as old as him, but I'm old. So listening to some of his stories about debuting in Winnipeg or, some of the guys he used to play against or play with that had some names from the past, that was kind of interesting. But the usual stuff that they do on this show is just not for me. But you had to get it in context. So there are enough people out there who clipped just the very worst part that I played for you there. Some of them only gave the audio instead of the video clip where Keith Tkachuk is gesturing at Matthew, indicating further that he's talking about the Panthers. But that's disingenuous. That's for clicks. That's for engagement online. But there was enough media members who bought in and are having to circle back and apologize and go, oh man, I've watched the whole thing. I think now he's talking about the yeah. You can't report, if you're a journalist, if you're a reporter, on a 20-second clip on Twitter. Do a little research. Have some pride, for God's sake. I shouldn't have said that on Good Friday. I apologize, Lord. Please still bring me chocolates. That's a whole other can of worms. Not my Easter chocolates, but reporters not doing their job and then having to come back and apologize or comment on something that everyone else has already figured out 2 days ago. That's a pretty bad look. But some of this, as far as the fan base goes, they were set up to get the worst possible clip and react to it. So I got no real comment on the everyone's hurt part of this. That was clearly, as we said, directed at the Panthers. I'll tell you what the interesting one for me is, though, and the one I'm surprised isn't getting a little more play, is some talk about the salary cap and the money all going up and this and that. And Keith Tkachuk asks Brady this.
But the league is good. Like, what's the salary cap this year?
100, maybe 90.
Yeah, and it's going up to what next year?
I think it's continuing to go up. That's huge.
How many years do you have left, Brady?
2 more after this.
Okay.
Nice timing. Well, one of these, we'll talk.
Yeah. That's for another day.
And look, I think for the most part, we're talking here about the cap is exploding. And so how many more years before you get to get another crack at it? But how quickly both Matthew kind of goes, yeah, we'll talk. Like, why would Matthew care? Like, that's a weird thing to say about Brady and what he's about to get paid. We'll talk as in, I know a nice place you could live down here. Where should we go together? Could mean anything. To me, that's an actually interesting piece. And Keith shuts that one down as the instigator throughout most of the rest of this show. He's like, it's for after the podcast or whatever he said. I'm surprised that one isn't getting more play. And again, like I said, I think it's mostly about the money and getting to get paid again. But to have, no doubt they've had that conversation. Maybe it results in Matthew coming to Ottawa. I have no idea. Maybe they don't really care about it that much. Obviously, for the Hughes brothers, it was supposed to be a thing. Now, who knows if it's going to be a thing? These guys, at some point, over golf, over family dinner, have had a conversation. At some point, by the end of our careers, should we try to play together? Maybe it's in St. Louis, right? Their hometown. I don't know. To me, that little moment there was far more telling or far more suggestive or far more provocative, let's call it, than whatever the hell all the injury stuff and was that a shot at Allmark and these sorts of things. No. I found that one titillating, if you'll allow me to use the word. And the most real one that people have a right to kind of raise an eyebrow about is this.
You didn't play that much last game either.
Never does.
Come on. I just wanted to throw that in there. Why play him a lot in a big game?
Why play him more at the Olympics than a regular season? That makes sense.
I'm just carving the coach right now.
Commenting on the ice time. First of all, the fewer minutes than what he played at the Olympics isn't true, but I get they're trying to make a point here. But they're openly kind of busting on Travis Green and his utilization of Brady. Now, Brady's putting up some points this year, but there's something missing. Look, we've had this conversation here before. You've probably had it with other fans before. It's been in the media in other places, so we don't have to get into it. Brady is having a different kind of season that makes him, for the moment, a little less unicorn-ish. So I don't necessarily blame Travis Green for not feeling like Brady Tkachuk needs 21, 22 minutes a night right now. He's averaging more like 17 and a half since the Olympics, and that seems about right. But here we are out in public, with the world watching, openly mocking Travis Green's usage of the captain. People are going to have questions about that, man. And people did. Travis Green is probably one of them. He says he hasn't seen it. I believe that's probably true. I'm sure he's heard about it. And probably just doesn't want to be bothered with it right now. The Sens have enough other things going on right now. Fighting for their lives, blowing through defensemen by the day, trying to make sure your goaltender's good and ready to go, and trying to fight off the media all at the same time. Travis Green does not want to go and talk to his captain. I heard there was talk on your podcast that I'm not playing you enough. Do we have to have a conversation right now? He doesn't want that. He doesn't need that. And the organization probably didn't love any part of this. And look, the player podcast thing, like Draymond Green does this beautifully, and he sets the league on fire a couple of times a year, and people just live with it. Hockey is different. You know this. Hockey players don't talk. Hockey players are conservative. Maybe there's a part of this that is good for the game. I don't know. Like I said, this particular show isn't for me, but they wouldn't still be doing it if nobody was watching, if nobody was listening. But I can tell you for sure, the Ottawa Senators did not need any part of the 3 clips I've played for you on this podcast so far. None of them would have landed as good news on the doorstep of Steve Staios or Travis Green or the PR staff. It was just a headache the team didn't need during a week. They didn't need it in the middle of a playoff race. And all of it was self-inflicted. Brady doesn't have to do the podcast. And again, I'm not ripping him necessarily for doing the podcast, but this is voluntary. This is self-inflicted. Anything that comes of this is on you. So I have a hard time giving him much sympathy. And I want to play a couple clips from him. But before I do, this is a situation where I think fans have to kind of... I have seen Senators fans. I've seen lots of fans of lots of organizations lament the loss of media on the road. Something bad happens to your team or your team plays like shit and there's nobody there to ask a question at the end. Lots of outlets are just not sending media anymore. They're cutting back, they're cheaping out, and it stinks. It sucks for all of us. This is not the way sports should be covered. You should have to be accountable as players, as coaches, for the things you do, and not just be answering questions to the PR staff that might be traveling with the team. But your beef there is with the outlets, not with the team. The team, I'm sure, doesn't mind the fact that they don't have to answer these hard questions on the road. But they're not the ones who have shut this down and barred media members from being there. TSN, Sportsnet, whatever, Post Media, The Athletic, they have cheaped out and said, we're not sending people. And it's shit. It's a dereliction of their responsibilities to the fan base. But that's what they've done. And I've seen Sens fans no different than any other sports fan pissed off about it. This was a garbage game tonight. Is anyone going to ask them about it? Oh, no, nobody's there. It's a reasonable complaint. It's a reasonable thing to be frustrated by. But this stuff, this week, all of it, internally done. The goaltender was in the room when he made that decision. The poor play on Tuesday by everybody was in the room. The podcast was done by the captain. All of this stuff isn't outside noise, isn't being brought to you by some unfair place that you now have to deal with it. It's all self-created. So when you get home and the media is there and wants to speak to you, you're probably going to have to answer for it. And as a fan, we cannot get mad that they get asked a tough question now. Just because you're done hearing about this topic because the subject is 3 or 4 days old, they haven't been put on the record yet. You're sick of hearing about it. They haven't been asked once, and they should have to answer. Hey, dear old dad says you're not getting enough ice time. Matthew says it's crap too, and you sat there and kind of giggled and laughed and didn't push back. Do you agree? It's a reasonable question. We can't get mad about it, man. It's a totally legitimate question. So it is Julian McKenzie who asks Brady the first time, hey, a lot of stuff out of the podcast this week, and I'm going to let you hear the question as best I can, but he's in the background. This is one of those press scrums, so it's kind of quiet. So I want to kind of summarize here, and then I will let you hear the question for yourself because I think that's better. So Julian asks him, a lot of talk about the podcast, injuries and back-to-backs and this and that. What do you have to say about it?
There's a lot of talk about the podcast, the last one you did with your dad, and some comments made about how players handle injuries and goalies playing back-to-back. Were you able to clarify what your dad might have?
Yeah, I mean, being a part of it and rewatching it, I mean, I think it was pretty clear he was talking about Florida. I don't know how that got turned and misconstrued, but no, it happens. But, I mean, I know in there I thought it was clear as day he was talking about Florida, but all that other stuff and just people taking it and twisting it, just nothing I can do about it.
So just to interrupt here quickly, because you're going to get Julian again, and it is hard to hear him in the background, and he's kind of hard to hear. He sort of says, so you didn't feel like that was them taking a shot at Linus Ullmark?
So you don't think your dad made a shot at Linus at all?
I don't think, and I talked to him after, there was not one shot. So, I don't know how that got twisted and have to talk about it now, but I thought it was clear as day. He's talking about the Florida Panthers.
So, okay, no problem. And now Julian is going to specifically ask, because Brady hasn't mentioned it yet, he has made it clear that he thinks Dad is talking about the Florida Panthers. He clearly says that. I think it was quite clear Dad's talking about the Florida Panthers. So Julian now has to ask about the thing that clearly isn't about the Florida Panthers, and it's about Brady's ice time.
Or any of the quips about ice time? I know your dad.
Yeah, I mean, I've answered twice now, so I mean, it's nothing I can say that what people twist and say. I know what I was a part of it, and all those things didn't come out of my mouth. And I mean, I completely respect my dad. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. So I mean, I'm not going to put words in his mouth or explain what he said. He's just, if you know him, he's an outgoing guy. He says kind of what he thinks, and I know it's comes from a good place.
No. No good, Brady. First of all, you don't get to say I've already answered twice, because you didn't. This is a new question about you specifically, your ice time, your coach, and what your family has said about it. Second of all, come on. You just said in the first clip, my dad is talking about the Florida Panthers. That's obvious. That's clearly what he's talking about. You can't come back later and say, I'm not going to put words in his mouth when it comes to this part of it, your ice time. Which is it? You either have to say to all of it, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I don't know necessarily what he was thinking or what he meant or what he would have said. I'm sure he would pick up your call, Julian, if you would like to interview him. Or, yeah, no, I guess he meant that he thinks I don't get enough ice time here. You can't say, I'm not going to put words in his mouth when you just finished putting words in his mouth for the first part, because that was the easier one to diffuse. No good. And you certainly don't get to give Julian McKenzie, who's been a professional through all of this stuff. Yeah, sometimes he is the one who asks the tough questions. Yeah, sometimes Claire Hanna is the one that asks the tough questions. You should want that. You should like that. You should be appreciative that someone is standing in there holding people to account instead of just writing puff pieces, because then they might as well be the guy who travels with the team on the PR staff. And the number of people I see bringing it up and ripping the media, ripping Julian for asking that question and bringing it up again after the game. He hadn't spoken yet. This was their first chance to ask Brady about it. If you're going to go out in public, on camera, and release a podcast, which isn't live, by the way, anybody could have stood up at any moment before that was released and said, that section and that section, no good, man. We should cut that. And there are edit points all over the place through this podcast. There are other things that do get cut out. There are things that are edited, clearly. So someone could have said, hey, that's going to be tough on me, or that's a bad look. Let's delete that. Nobody did. So all of you thought this was going to be fine. All of you had the chance. It goes out to the world. Yeah, you got to answer for it now, man. You don't get to go, I already answered that. You didn't. You don't get to say, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, because you just did. So look, if that's how Brady wants to play this, that's fine. Like, it's not fine. It's a shitty answer to the question. But he gets to talk to the media however he wants, and then we get to form whatever opinion we want. I can't believe how many fans were mad at the media after that. Specifically, Julian. You don't think that was a reasonable question? To go, hey, the three of you were just sitting in a room. You said nothing while your dad and your brother ripped your ice time and made fun of your coach. Any comment? That's journalism, man. Sorry. As much as any sports journalism does exist, that's what it looks like. If you don't like it, fine. But don't watch the press conference. Don't watch the scrum. It's a totally reasonable question for the media to ask, and I'm glad somebody did. Otherwise, why do you care if TSN 1200 is still there during the morning skates? Just get it from the team. Get it from the PR staff. Get it from whatever they put out on YouTube or TikTok. You don't need anybody from the outside asking questions. If you just want it spoon-fed to you that Brady's great and everybody's great and we're all happy and everything's great and we're going to make the playoffs and win the cup every year and everything's super, you don't need media. The team will happily give you that. I was shocked last night at how many people were pissed. And the same people, in many cases, who get pissed when there's no one there to ask questions when there's something they're upset about. Hey, why didn't my goalie play on Saturday? Hey, why didn't you play this guy in this situation? Hey, when that stuff matters to you and you're mad that no one's there to ask the question, I find that to be totally reasonable. That's totally legitimate. You should have media there to hold these people to account and ask, what's going on? But if you're that guy, just because this particular question and answer isn't of interest to you, you don't get to get pissed when someone else's question does get asked. That is really weak. Now, I don't think they need to harp on it. I don't think it needs to be asked again. He's given you the only answer he's going to give you. I might roll my eyes a little if we're still doing this again, Saturday or whenever the hell the next game is. I'm sure it's Saturday. Asked and answered. But he hadn't answered the question yet that Julian asked and tried to finish with, and he cut him off and gave him some serious attitude, and it's a bad look for your captain. And like I said, completely self-inflicted. You are a player doing a podcast, putting your message out to the world. The world's going to see it. Maybe the world wants to ask you about it. You don't like it? quit the podcast. It's on the table. I hear a lot of people saying, well, I'm sure they have contract for the season or whatever. They have sponsors. These guys can afford to get out of the podcast. Trust me when I tell you, these guys can afford to buy out of whatever podcast advertisement deal they have right now. It's not that they're going to be held to this and taken under legal action and whatever else. Now, I'm not even saying he should quit the podcast. If he enjoys it and people are listening and watching, great. But either be smarter with your edits later or be more careful about what you say. And yes, that takes some of the fun out of the show when people are less candid and don't give straight answers and don't just shoot from the hip. But sometimes when you shoot from the hip, you end up shooting yourself right in the fucking foot. And that's all this was this week. Doesn't have to drag out any further. Doesn't have to be any bigger. Doesn't have to continue. But he did this to himself. And he doesn't get to get pissy about it when someone asks him about it. That was the first chance anyone in the media had to talk to him. He didn't speak before the game on Thursday, which was a little unusual. He said, I'll speak after the game, and he did. And someone asked. No problem. But I think the fans need to cut the media a little bit of slack here. Some of the gross stuff I've seen said about Claire Hanna since her conversation with Linus Ullmark. Some of the stuff that was said about Julian McKenzie on Thursday night. These people are pretty good at their job. Let's settle down a little. Anyway, good Friday. Good Friday. I think we'll wrap it up here. It's just about Blue Jays baseball time against the White Sox. We'll go check that out. And we will be back on Monday to see how that series has gone, to tee up things against the Dodgers, see what else has gone on in the world of sports by then. But have yourselves a fantastic Easter weekend. We'll talk to you then.